Multiplying decimals by decimals. When learning to multiply whole numbers, you may have been told that when multiplying, your solution will always produce a larger number. I'm going to show you a scenario right now where that is not the case. Here we have 9/10 times 3/10. We may choose to think of this as 9/10 of a group or 9/10 groups of 3/10, or we could think this is 3/10 of a group of 9/10. What's different about this problem is if we're talking about having 9/10 of a group of 3/10, that's not even one whole. We don't even have one whole group of 3/10, so we have part of that group, which means we must have a smaller number than 3/10 after we multiply these two numbers. Same for the other scenario. If we were to flip this and say that we have 3/10 of a group of 9/10, that means we're going to have just a fraction, a part of that 9/10. So we're not even going to have 9/10, we're going to have a smaller portion of that. So our answer should be smaller than 9/10. I'm going to model the first scenario, 9/10 of a group of 3/10. So I'm going to start by shading in 3/10, and then we're going to talk about what it looks like if we're talking about only 9/10 of that grouping. Of my 10 sections in this diagram representing one whole, I have shaded in 3 sections, so this represents 3/10. Now let's talk about what 9/10 looks like. 9/10 of 3/10, I'm going to have to take this section of 3/10 and split it as if I'm creating hundredths into 10 sections, and of those 10 sections within our 3/10, I'm going to shade the 9/10. I have divided this into 10 sections horizontally, and this unshaded region is really has no part in this any longer. And now I'm going to shade in 9/10 of the tenths that I have created by drawing these lines in this direction. I have now shaded in 9 sections of the 10 that I divided the 3/10 into. And so now I can determine my solution. My solution is going to be the number of double shaded blocks. Now you'll notice I'm no longer, this whole is no longer divided into tenths. It's now divided into hundredths because I've drawn lines vertically, I've drawn lines horizontally, so now I'm in hundredths. And if you count individual boxes, 1, 2, 3, by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I have 27 hundredths. My solution to this problem is 27 hundredths. And you'll recognize that this number is in fact smaller than either of the numbers that we initially started with. 27 hundredths is smaller than 30 hundredths or 90 hundredths. So this would be one scenario in which you will actually get a smaller product once you've multiplied the two decimals. Those scenarios are always going to be if your number is smaller than 1. Here you'll notice you don't even have a whole here, you do not have a whole here because these numbers are both smaller than 1. Our product is going to be smaller than the original two numbers. Okay, so steps for multiplying decimals by other decimals. Step 1, you're going to ignore the decimals and multiply like normal. So disregard the decimal until the very end of the problem. Step 2, count the number of digits to the right of both decimals in the original numbers. And then once you have that number, you're going to place the decimal in the product so that it is followed by the total number of digits behind the decimals in both original numbers. Example 1, 3 and 5/10 times 7 and 8/10. You can choose to stack these numbers either way. You can either do 3 and 5/10 times 7 and 8/10, or you can choose to flip them because of the commutative property of multiplication and have 7 and 8/10 times 3 and 5/10. You will get the same product either way. Step 1 tells us to multiply like normal, disregarding the decimals. 5 times 8 is 40, carry your 4. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 4 is 39. Placeholder 0, 3 times 8, 24. And 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2 is 23. Notice I do not have a decimal anywhere present in this process. Add 0 plus 0, 9 plus 4 is 13, carry your 1. 1 plus 3 is 7, and 2 plus nothing is 2. If you look at your original two numbers, 7 and 8 tenths and 3 and 5 tenths, you'll notice that this number has one digit to the right. This number has one digit to the right. So between the two, you have two total, 1, 2. So that's going to be the case in your product. You're going to move your decimal so that it is right here where there are two digits behind it. So we have 27 and 30 hundredths, or we can drop that last zero and say 27 and 3 tenths. Example 2, 24 and 1 tenth times 4 tenths. 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. If you choose to multiply the 0 out, that is absolutely fine, but it's not necessary. I'm going to do it just to show. Placeholder 0, 0 times 1, 0 times 4, 0 times 2. Add together, 4, 6, 9. I'm not going to bring a 0 down. It's unnecessary. And then if we look at our original problem, we have one digit in this number and one digit here. So between the two numbers, we have 1, 2 total. So I'm going to place my decimal so that there are 1, 2 digits behind it. My decimal is going to go right here. My solution is 9 and 64 hundredths. Example 3, 122 thousandths times 8 and 4 tenths. Multiply like normal, 4 times 2, 4 times 2, 4 times 1, 4 times 0. Placeholder, 8 times 2, 16, carry your 1. 8 times 2 plus 1 is 17, carry your 1. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 1 is 9, 0. Add the two lines, 8, 14, carry your 1, 12, carry your 1, 10, carry your 1, 1. Looking at the original problem, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 digits behind our decimal points, 4 total. So we will have 4 here in the product. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your decimal point so it has 4 numbers behind it. Our answer is 1 and 248 10,000ths. 5 hundredths times 6 and 221 thousandths. You may choose to stack these numbers either way. I chose to have the number with more digits on top just so it doesn't look lopsided. 5 times 1 is 5. 10, carry your 1. 11, carry your 1. 31. Placeholder 0. 0 times 1, times 2, times 2, times 6. 2 placeholders. Times 1, times 2, times 2, times 6. Add together. 5, 0, 1, 1, 3, 0. Looking at the original number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits to the right of the decimal. We will have 5 in our product. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Place your decimal between the 0 and the 3. Our final answer is 31,105 hundredths. Pause the video and complete these two problems on your own. When you're finished, hit play to check your answers. 16 and 2 tenths times 3 and 2 tenths. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry your 1. 1 times 2 plus 1 is 3. Placeholder, 6. 18. Carry your 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. Add. And you have 1, 2 digits behind the decimal, 1, 2 here. Your answer is 51 and 84 hundredths. Step 1, multiply like normal. 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times 7 is 7, 1 times 6 is 6. Placeholder 0, 0 times 3, 0 times 7, 0 times 6. 2 placeholders. 4 times 3 is 12, carry your 1. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29, carry your 2. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 2 is 26. Add. And count the number of digits behind your decimal in both numbers. 1, 2, and a third here, 3. So 1, 2, 3 behind. Our answer is 229 and 873 thousandths, and you're all finished.